EES, which is pronounced ease, is an acronym for Engineering Equation Solver. The variables that we've talked about thus far in these tutorials have all been scalar variables. That is, they can only be assigned one numerical value. But it's often useful to use array variables, and these are variables that can have multiple values or multiple elements. Variables that are stored in arrays can be used to generate plots in the same way that we used information in parametric tables to generate plots in earlier tutorials. Arrays are also a really handy way to organize information, and if you're doing any kind of numerical simulation, you're absolutely going to want to be able to use arrays. So the variable tscalar, which I've assigned here, has just one value, 100. The value, and if we wanted to, the units of this variable can be examined in the solution window. If I want to define a variable to be an array, all I have to do is add indices in square brackets that indicate which element of the array I'm defining with the statement. So here I have a variable tarray, and it contains 3 elements, and you can see I'm assigning the first element in this line, the second element, and then the third element. The values of the elements in the variable tarray are stored in the arrays table window, and you access that by selecting arrays from the window menu. It is possible, if you'd like, to actually put the array elements in the solution window, and if you want to do that, you have to deselect the box labeled Put Main Array Variables in the Array Tables right here in the Options tab of the Preferences dialog. These array variables behave just like any normal ease variable. They all have units and limits and guess values and so forth. You can assign units to the array one element at a time if you'd like, but usually all of the elements of an array have the same units, because an array usually refers to some common thing like a temperature or a pressure, and therefore you're better off assigning them all at once by right-clicking on the column in the arrays table and entering the unit, and if you'd like to, also an alternate unit right here. Arrays also show up in the variable information window, so if you select variable info from the options menu, you get this window, and by default each element of the array is shown individually, and the guess values, limits, and units can all be set differently for each element. But again, typically all elements share a common set of characteristics, and so you're best off deselecting the Show Array Variable button in the upper left-hand corner here, and that collapses the array down to one entry. And now any characteristic that you set for this collapsed array will be applied to each element of the array. It's also possible to assign different values of the guessed values or the limits to each element in an array using a different array that's been set up just for that purpose. And that capability is discussed in section 5.3 of Mastering Ease. One purpose of using arrays is to organize information. So for example, every element of an array might correspond to a property at a particular state in a cycle that has many state points, or maybe each element corresponds to the value of some quantity at a particular node inside of a numerical simulation. The other reason to use arrays is that mathematical operations that are common to every element in an array can be performed conveniently using the duplicate command, and we'll talk about that in a subsequent tutorial. It's also possible to define an array that contains strings rather than numbers. The difference here is that a string array variable must have the $ character just before the left bracket that holds the array index. So for example, this is an array that has 2 strings in it. A convenient shorthand method for referring to multiple array values in one statement is with the array range notation, which is shown here. So you put the first index and the last index separated by 2 dots in order to refer to the entire range between those indices. So for example, this line refers to the first 4 elements of the variable tarray. And on the right-hand side of this assignment, ease expects a matching number of values. So if there were only 2 values put over here, then you'd get an error. If you have more than the 4 values you're looking for, then what ease will do is use the first 4, but you will get a warning indicating that something is probably wrong with this line. If you have 2 indices, then the array will be 2-dimensional, so it'll be a matrix rather than a vector. And in that case, the first subscript indicates the row, and the second one the column. So for example, these statements would make an array that has 2 rows and 3 columns. We could do the same thing more compactly if we use the array range notation to assign each of the rows, as I've done here. I can assign any element to this array to another variable. So here, if I'd like to extract the element in the second row and the third column and put it in the variable x, I would just write x equals tarray 2, 3. So the next tutorials are going to talk more about arrays and the array editor and also how you work with arrays. But this has just been an introduction to the idea of arrays and what they are in Ease. This is one of a series of tutorials that's meant to describe the operation of the Ease software. If you'd like more information about Ease, if you'd like to obtain the software or access more of these tutorials, please go to the website fchart.com. These tutorials are excerpted from the book Mastering Ease, which can also be obtained from the Fchart website.